Chapter 1 1990. The elevator was crowded. Rebecca Cullen was trying to balance 3 cups and a box without spilling coffee all over the floor. Maybe if she learned to do this really well, she thought, she could join a circus and go on stage with her performance. The lids on the foam cups weren't secure, as usual. The man who worked the counter at the small drugstore downstairs didn't look twice at women like Rebecca. And who cared if coffee spilled all over a thin, nondescript woman in an out-of-style gray suit? He probably figured her for Ms. Businesswoman, she thought. Some rabid man-hater with a string of degrees after her name and a career in place of a husband and kids. Wouldn't he be shocked to see her at home on Granddad's farm, in cut-off jeans and a tank top in summer, which this wasn't, with her mass of gold-streaked light brown hair down to her waist and barefoot? This suit was pure camouflage. Becky was a country girl, and the sole support of her retired grandfather and her 2 younger brothers. Their mother had died when she was 16, and their father only stopped in to visit when he was broke and needed money. He'd moved to Alabama a couple of years back, and none of them had heard from him since. Becky didn't care if she never did again. She had a good job. In fact, the law firm's recent relocation to Curry Station worked to her favor, because her office in the industrial complex right outside Atlanta was now only a short drive from Granddad's farm where they all lived. It was just like coming home, because her people had lived in Curry County for more than 100 years. She didn't have a complaint about her job, except that she wished her bosses would remember to buy a new coffee urn before much longer. This several times daily trip down to the drugstore snack counter was getting to be a grind. There were 3 other secretaries, a receptionist, and 2 paralegals in the office, but they had seniority. Becky got to do the mule work. She grimaced as she headed for the elevator, hoping she wouldn't run into her nemesis on the way up to the 6th floor. Her hazel eyes scanned the area quickly. She relaxed as soon as she was able to conclude that the towering figure was not waiting around the elevators. It wasn't bad enough that he had a stare like black ice, or that he seemed to hate women in general, and her in particular. But he also smoked those god-awful thin black cigars. In an elevator, they were pure hell. She wished somebody would tell him that there was a city ordinance against smoking in crowded public places. She meant to, but there always seemed to be a crowd around, and for all Becky's toughness of spirit, she was shy in crowds. But one day it would be just her and that man, and she'd tell him how she felt about his extremely smelly cigars. Her mind drifted as she waited for the slow-moving elevator to descend. She had worse problems than the cigar man, she reminded herself. Granddad was still recovering from the heart attack 2 months ago that had brought his career as a farmer to an abrupt halt. Now Becky was feeling the increased burden keenly. Unless she could learn to run the tractor and grow crops, in addition to working as a legal secretary 6 days a week, Granddad's truck farm was destined to be a total loss. Her oldest brother, Clay, was a senior in high school, constantly in trouble these days, and no help at all around the house. Mac was in the 5th grade and failing math. He was a willing helper, but too small to do much. Becky herself was 24, and she'd never had a social life at all. She'd just barely finished school when her mom had died, and her father had taken off for parts unknown. Becky allowed her thoughts to drift for a moment, wondering what her life could have been like. There might have been parties and nice clothes, and men to take her on dates. She smiled at the thought of not having people depend on her. "Excuse me," a woman with an attaché case muttered, almost upending the coffee all over Becky. She came out of her daydream in time to pile aboard the elevator, already crowded from its trip to the garage in the basement. She managed to wedge in between a woman who reeked of perfume and 2 men who were arguing, loudly, the benefits of 2 rival computers. It was a blinding relief when they, and almost everyone else, including the abundantly fragrant lady, got off on the 3rd and 4th floors. "Oh, God, I hate computers," Becky sighed out loud as the elevator slowly began climbing to the 6th floor.
"So do I,"
came a gruff, disgruntled voice from behind.